Hey everybody and welcome back to my channel. I'm Keenan H. Crotty, aka Keenman, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most romantic movies of all time, Ghost. First things first, I'm going to address the change in background decor that you may have noticed. The room in which I normally record in is currently going under some renovation, so I had to seek a slightly different location. Hopefully you don't find the motorcycles or the pool table to be too distracting. However, they are very cool. With that out of the way, let's get back to the point of this video. As I mentioned at the very beginning, I finally saw a movie that's a cultural icon, referenced in dozens of movies and films since its premiere in 1990. The classic romantic drama Ghost, starring Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore, and Whoopi Goldberg. Despite me being such a huge movie aficionado, I never had a copy of it growing up, and we didn't have satellite TV for a long time where maybe I could like rent it or something, and it was just never a movie that I ended up getting to for whatever reason or another. But I finally rented it, and all in all, it was a good movie. It had good acting in it. It was very well constructed, a very well written script. Of course, I got to see the sexy pottery scene where Patrick Swayze gets all up on Demi Moore, and I could see why people like that.
Wait for me, I'll be coming home, wait for me.
There was some corniness and some awkwardness to it. It still had the vibe of the 80s and, you know, that weird transition period from the 80s into the 90s into it. All in all, it was a good film, and I would definitely recommend seeing it. But that's actually not what I'm talking about this movie for. I don't necessarily do film reviews. The thing that I want to talk about, though, is just the very premise of the movie. As you can tell by the title, it involves ghosts.
Spooky, scary.
And while ghosts are an interesting supernatural kind of element to include in a story, and especially in this one for its narrative purposes, it introduces a very profound idea that the movie doesn't really dwell upon that much, but I did by the end of it, and that's all I could think about. And the fact that it would have enormous ramifications for not only the individual characters and how they then perceive reality in the rest of their lives, but if it got out to the wider world, how it would fundamentally change human society altogether.
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
And that's the fact that Ghost proves that there is an afterlife and that there is a God. And that's enormous. If you think about it, all of human life, most of human civilization has been trying to figure out what is the meaning of life, what is the purpose, why are we put here? And a lot of those questions are answered and debated through religion, and sometimes to deadly effect. This film has a world in which we find out that that is absolutely the case, that there is truly a God.
I'm God.
And that there is an answer, and a very specific kind of answer as well. And that is what this particular video is about. However, before I get too deep into this profound idea within this film, I do suppose I'm going to give another spoiler warning. I mean, I gave a spoiler warning for Back to the Future, and that's older than Ghost. So if you haven't seen the film Ghost, I am going to be giving spoilers. I want to talk about how your life has changed knowing God is real through the movie Ghost. So the film Ghost very obviously deals with ghosts. Duh. A ton of movies use the idea of ghosts. I mean, we could even talk about Ghostbusters, for example, has ghosts within the film. In Ghostbusters, the ghosts are cartoonish ghouls and demons and creatures that are like poltergeists that possess things and cause havoc and whatnot. They're very fantastical. They're almost like fantasy creatures from a fantasy film. There are references to, you know, like Gozer and Sumerian deities, but yet again, that almost goes into demons. Spawn of Satan. And things like that. We're not necessarily dealing with anything that has any kind of relation to real world religion and mysticism and spiritualism. Ghost, however, makes it very abundantly clear that the ghosts we're dealing with are very much the spirits or the souls of dead people.
I see dead people.
and that there is a religious framework underlies in the film. So in the movie, Patrick Swayze's character Sam Wheat is madly in love with his girlfriend and soon-to-be fiance, perhaps, Molly, played by Demi Moore. They're living a charmed life, everything's going very great, when suddenly Sam is killed with a gun when he's trying to defend his wife from a would-be mugger, and so he dies, and he sees his body as he's a ghost. He sees a bright white light coming down with sparkles and whatnot, and of course that being a reference to the common trope or the idea that people have said when they've had near-death experiences, that they see light at the end of a tunnel, they see light that they want to go toward, which symbolizes heaven.
No! Harry, no! Don't look at the light!
I can't help it. It's so beautiful.
And we get this confirmed later when he's at the hospital and he sees another person die. Same effect, sees a golden light shine down upon them. They never say that it's heaven, but we definitely get that idea through cultural connotations that we have in our society, being a country that has a large population of Christians and other Judeo-Christian type religions. We understand through cultural cues that this is supposed to clearly be heaven. And we get this even further drilled in later when we find that same mugger eventually gets killed. And when he dies, he gets attacked by dark, evil spirits that then drag him away. And they come up from the ground versus whereas the gold light comes up from the sky, obviously playing into the ideas of in Christianity that hell is down versus going up into heaven, kind of, like Dante's Inferno style. We see this emphasized later by the character of Carl, who is Sam's best friend, who we come to find out actually orchestrated the whole mugging in order to kill his best friend and steal a little booklet that he has in order to conduct this embezzling scheme. What I'm trying to say is that the main difference between how ghosts are used in Ghostbusters versus how they're used in Ghost is that one is more fantastical and fun and doesn't really dive into any real theological issues, whereas Ghost does. It very explicitly exists within a particular theological construct, and that religious framework being Christianity. I'm not even going to say it's Judaism. Traditional Judaism doesn't believe in the type of heaven, hell, afterlife dichotomy that Christianity does. And I'm gonna go out on a limb and assume that the film wasn't written with an Islamic background in mind, that this film was targeted more with a Christian framework in place. Ghost opens up the door that we are living in a universe in which there's an absolutely true, correct answer as to, is there a God? Is there a way that we should live our lives? It absolutely is. It's a Christian life. We have to conduct ourselves within the morals and confines of the Christian religion.
Oh, don't grovel. One thing I can't stand is people groveling.
So whatever those ideals are, you have to follow if you want to go into heaven. And not every character believes this. So the character of Oda Mae, played by Whoopi Goldberg, is a spiritualist. She's a psychic that can supposedly speak to the dead, but she starts off as a scammer. She doesn't actually talk to anybody. She just tricks poor people that want to be able to communicate with their dead loved ones and comes up with some bullshit in order to get their money. Until she does then legitimately come into contact with Sam, and then she becomes a believer and starts talking with a bunch of spirits. She went from someone who was a clear cynic who clearly didn't actually believe in the afterlife whatsoever to being someone who got definitive proof that there is an afterlife. I mean, in very hardcore ways. The movie not only has her have very blatant discussions with Sam throughout the movie, she gets possessed by Ghost 2 times.
Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with the Father and the Holy Spirit. Damien!
So not only are we getting, the idea that there is truly an afterlife and that there is, moral consequences to your life when you die and that you can become a ghost or go to heaven or hell, but you can get, crazy things such as ghost possession. And she also witnesses the several instances after which Sam learns to be kind of a poltergeist and be able to interact with physical objects in the world and does all kinds of crazy ghost poltergeisty kind of things throughout the film. And then you have Demi Moore's character. Demi Moore's character explicitly says that she doesn't believe in the afterlife when she first talks to Oda Mae, and also when she's in the police station she talks about how she knows how this sounds crazy and whatnot, and is very much a skeptic. She went from someone who was at least agnostic, if not atheist, to someone who fully now knows that there is a God, that there is an afterlife, and that your decisions have an effect on the eternity of your immortal soul after you perish. That is a huge impact on her life. She went from having her whole concept of reality shaken and broken with this incident, and in an incredibly personal kind of way. She found this out through the ghost of her dead lover, someone that she was gonna marry and have a life with, and, you know, have beautiful kids and a beautiful life and all that stuff.
Once in a lifetime.
That is profound. I could only imagine what kind of effect that would have on your life. And then Oda Mae, it's same thing. She regularly talks to ghosts now. She, you know, hears voices in her head all the time. And then that doesn't even get to the very end of the film. Sam Wheat gets the light from heaven again. And Oda Mae and Molly, this time, not only see the golden light come down, the golden light illuminates the spirit of Sam so they can see him as a ghost before he goes into heaven. They now have seen him as a ghost, as a legit dead person, and the fucking gateway to heaven.
Fuck yeah!
They saw heaven and a ghost come at the same time. That's crazy. They have absolute proof that would completely fundamentally change how they would behave. And then, you know, obviously, if this got out into the real world, imagine what kind of effect that would have on the world if the world knew what Oda Mae and Molly know. Not only is there a God, but it's specifically a Christian God. All other religions would become moot. What would be the point? No one would want to be a Buddhist. No one would want to be a Hindu. No one would want to be anything.
Who's the fucking nihilist around here, you bunch of fucking crybabies?
All other religions would crumble. Christianity would gain worldwide dominance.
Try to take over the world.
I mean, and think about how that would affect history, historical context. You would have all kinds of massively shitty events that are suddenly vindicated. The enslavement of Africans is somewhat justified. Crusades in murdering of millions of Muslims, somewhat justified. The Inquisition during the Middle Ages of people suspected to be witches and heretics, somewhat justified. The Salem witch trials, somewhat justified. The genocide of Native Americans, somewhat justified. The Holocaust is somewhat justified in this new sense. And now, okay, I'm exaggerating because obviously, as I mentioned earlier, we don't know specifically what are the things that are enumerated in the rules of the ghost universe that allows you to go to heaven and hell. We get some very basic things that you shouldn't murder people, and you shouldn't steal and betray and all those kind of things, and that you generally have to be like nice. We get that as ways to get into heaven or go down to hell. We can assume a little bit more that this might be more of the kind of God that is like the God that exists in the Old Testament, who enjoys a little bit of revenge. Now, the reason why I say that is because Sam, once he learns that he can interact with the physical world while a ghost, he then starts to torment the friend that betrayed him. He starts writing him spooky messages and calling him a murderer. And there's a scene where after he's essentially foiled Kurt's embezzling plan, and Kurt is, you know, going crazy because he knows that the people he's working for are gonna come after him and probably kill him. Sam is sitting in a chair behind him. It is just sitting there gloating, being like, aha, you're fucked. You're gonna get screwed. They're gonna come after you and kill you. You're gonna get what you deserve. And that's true. I mean, he knows full well that his actions are gonna result in Kurt dying. That is definitely a revenge retribution type thing. He knows that his actions are gonna lead to someone's death. Yes, Kurt is a shitty person, and Kurt also got him killed, but that's still killing of someone. It's an eye for an eye. And that's a very Christian kind of ideal. It's a very retributional type of thing that is common with Old Testament God. That is the kind of vengeful God that smites people.
Smite me, almighty smiter!
God did a lot of genocide and a lot of burning down of peoples and other torments, plagues on whole populations of people. All of those previous atrocities that I mentioned, I don't know, there might be a basis in which those things are true. Those things get justified. We have a world in which all these other religions are going to suddenly become moot. All these people are going to suddenly lose all of this framework with which they lived their whole lives by. They might get persecuted against again because they now live in a world that a Christian God and a Christian concept of the afterlife exists. That might give credence to extremist groups.
Damn. I can't see fucking shit out of this thing.
Maybe we later find out that those extreme events, such as the Holocaust and the Inquisition, are incorrect interpretations, and that this version of God in the ghost universe doesn't like that. But you're going to have a period of time where extremists promote that stuff until it gets proven otherwise. And people like Molly and Oda Mae, who are skeptics, they're going to have to change their lives. I mean, Oda Mae was a scam artist. Her actions can have implications onto whether or not she gets to go up into heaven. What do you have to do to make up for it?
Answer me these questions 3.
Were her previous crimes as a scam artist, which I think to me are pretty fucked up crimes. Those are pretty serious crimes in a world in which God and ghosts exist, where you trick people into thinking that you're communicating with their loved one when you were just bullshitting them. That's horrible. That is giving false hope to people. That's lying, and lying about a thing as serious as that. I feel like God would punish that pretty harshly. And in medieval times, in Dante's Inferno, people who did such things were pretty deep down in the circle. I don't remember what one it is. I'll look it up and put it up here. Does her helping out Sam and now legitimately helping out people, yet still for money, I'm sure, does that make up for it? The other thing I want to get into is that the end of this film brings up a very interesting implication for me about how Molly's life is totally screwed up. So she saw the person that she loved the most at that time, that she wanted to marry and live a happy life with, get murdered in front of her eyes. That's an extremely hardcore, devastating experience. She then, through the course of this movie, she learns that not only is her loved one a ghost and has been essentially haunting her for the past couple of weeks, but also that heaven is real and hell is real, and that you can go to both of those things. That therefore means that you can see your loved ones after you die, assuming that you are a good person or a bad person, I guess, if you wanted to see your loved one who's in hell.
Questions and you
That is interesting. Let's fuck.
You can see your loved ones for eternity in the afterlife. So she knows that some point in the future when she dies, whether through natural causes or accidental causes, that she can see Sam again. I don't remember what the exact dialogue is in the end scene, but Patrick Swayze's character Sam says things that implies that he's going to watch over her while she's still alive and that they'll see each other again.
Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
Which obviously they will at some point, assuming that she goes into heaven. She's lived through this very traumatic experience of seeing a loved one die, but then knowing that they do still exist and will live on and that she will see them forever. But how do you live a normal life after that? I have no idea. That's all I could think about when I finished this movie. She is now going to have to live, and Demi Moore, I don't know how old she is in this movie or what her character's supposed to be. Let's say that she's in her 30s. So she has probably another 50 years to live. Maybe even more, maybe 60 if she's real lucky. She still has another half a century of life to live, knowing full well that that person she loved, who by the way saved her from the evil machinations of and she's supposed to just live her life normal after that. I could not personally even fathom how I could go on living a normal life knowing that someone that I loved that much, who saved my life, is now waiting for me for eternity. I could never date anyone again. Yeah, maybe I could get my rocks off and have sex with some people, but I'm never gonna seriously love anybody ever again. I mean, how could I? I would feel so betrayed. I would know that he's watching me all the time. And now I know what you're saying. Sam is a good dude. Sam's a nice guy. He wants Molly to have a happy life. He would want her to get married, to have kids, to live whatever life that she wants. Assuming if that made her happy, he would want her to do whatever made her happy. And I'm sure, if she died and she went to heaven, he would be fine with it. But I wouldn't be fine with it, and I feel like a lot of people would not be fine with it. If I was in Molly's position, that is still such a heartbreaking knowledge to hold on to. How could you not feel some sense of loyalty to not only knowing that he's alive up there, but that he's watching you and that he saved your life? He doesn't expect anything, but that's a debt. I would feel so bad. I could not love anybody. I couldn't. I would always, and I mean, I'm a person where I think about my past relationships all the time. So maybe this is just the me problem, but I feel like a lot of you would at least get a hint of that. I mean, and the heart wants what the heart wants, so you'd eventually have it, but then you have that awkward moment. So say that Molly does end up loving somebody. She marries a guy, they have kids, they live a beautiful life, blah, 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 then they both die. And they both are good people. So they both get to go to heaven. So Molly goes up into heaven with her husband and finally gets to be reunited with Sam. So then what? Can Molly get to be both with her husband and with Sam? Or at that point, is she just like, yeah, Sam, hi, you know, I always loved you, Sam. You're such a good man. And thank you for saving my life back then and loving me so hard that you literally got to go back to heaven again. But you know, he's my husband and I have kids, so bye. Like, that's so weird to me. That seems so harsh. Yet again, this might be just me. I'm a kind of person where I still care very deeply for people that I previously had relationships with. So other people maybe wouldn't feel so bad. They would just be like, oh, he was like my first boyfriend back in high school. Like, yeah, I still like him and I still think fondly of him, but you know, this is the first. To me, that's different because it's different when most people also don't know. They might believe and they might think, but they don't know that there is an afterlife. So to me, that just adds so much extra weight to the situation that it'd be really awkward. Like, she comes up with her husband and Sam's like, you know, hey, I've been checking you out. See that you got this guy. He's really nice. Didn't save you or anything, but he's good. He's a good guy. You know, I've only been waiting for you for 60 years and, you know, we literally have eternity. So, you know, if you want to talk, that's cool. You know, I'll just be here forever. I doubt that heaven allows polyamorous relationships. I doubt that she could be both with Sam and with her husband at the same time. So just how does that work? Personally, for me, I would find it very weird and very difficult for Molly to be able to function for the rest of her life without constantly feeling indebted or at least feeling she needs to save herself for Sam. That's got to be a very heavy,
There's that word again, heavy.
weight psychologically to hold on to, knowing that this person you love so dearly who saved your life is actually waiting for you. That is so hard. That is so heartbreaking to me. That's got to have some impact on how you live the rest of your life. I mean, how could you not be some kind of heartless douche and not have that person in your mind for literally every other relationship you ever have? And he's such a good dude. How could you not? It would make living so hard. I don't know how she could do it. Living in the world of Ghost, it does not seem as romantic after that kind of revelation. So there we have it. That's my rant on the film Ghost. This is a classic example of something that I do all the time when I watch a film. I watch a film and I enjoy it, but then I get these little ideas that once you start looking into the real world implications and minutiae of it, it really starts to create really messed up situations that I think are just really fun thought experiments to think through. In the future, look out for more of those kind of me ruining small details within what are otherwise good films. And if you'd like to see more of that kind of content, I would love it if you gave me a like and a subscribe. Anything you can do to support me is greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching the video and sticking around. Until next time, adios.